Hello.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Conversations in Pop Culture as we are back in the saddle once again for another season. And today's episode is sponsored by Nightwolf. Born into the outcast breed of werewolves known as the Monakai, 18-year-old Rodney Marsili is reluctantly pulled into an ancient war between good and evil during a modern time where the line has blurred. With the help of Snowpaw, the pure-blooded Monakai, and supernatural evil slayer Night Hunter, Rod must learn to master his newly found the Panther 3 and the mysterious kinetic energy power that he only possesses. Rod must fight the Dark Covenant in order to avenge his friends and family and to save the girl he loves from the master vampire lord Malice. Rod Marsili is Nightwolf. Nightwolf 1-7 is live now on Kickstarter through May 11th from the creative team of Rob Matari, Mog Parker, Carlos Herrera, and Gat Melvin. Join the Wolf Pack by backing the Kickstarter today at lonewolfcomics.com/Nightwolf. But enough about my sponsor, because I have with me the great and fantastic comic creator Preston Poulter. So welcome back to the show.
Thanks. You know what? You should tell me how I can get my own sponsorship deal, because that's one thing I remember about your show is you're very faithful every time. I forget who. I forget who it was last time, but it was somebody, and you were there. You read the whole statement every time. So good on you.
Yeah, no. It's been a while since I've had a sponsor. It's been a while, but I'm happy. Helps keep the show running. Every little dollar helps to just reduce it down $1 at a time. And my rates are pretty affordable. So, but enough about that, because you got a lot of stuff going on with Kickstarter. I think you have Quest for Ruby Heart Adventure Path.
Yeah.
The Palace of the Golden Princess as well in there. And
yes,
there's a lot of stuff with going on with this. What's the basic premise for those who are hearing about it for the first time?
So, we went into COVID, and role-playing games really took off during that time, because everybody was locked up and they started playing on, via Zoom and, digital, well, not really, but, virtual tabletops, Roll20, Fantasy Grounds, stuff like that. And the Kickstarter, it also started to reflect in big Kickstarter numbers, where there was like the old school stuff, where Old School Essentials, which is what I'm about to, that's the set of rules where it's first edition D&D essentially repackaged. And my next Kickstarter is going to be for Palace of the Golden Princess, the first in the series of the Quest for Ruby Heart is going to be done under that rule system. My previous campaign was under the 5th edition rule system, but like when that campaign came out in like 2020, let's say 2020, somewhere in there, it was like $250,000, and then another one, 400,000. Shadow Dark, just like a couple of months ago, was like a kind of an old school version of 5th edition, and that one did over $1 million. I mean, that space is really blowing up, and I wanted to do something in that space. So I'm doing a comic book / role-playing adventure. And I've already done it for 5th edition. So we've done that. And you know what? Here, if I've been giving it out lately, because I'm just like, because with, I don't know if you've been following, but Wizards of the Coast has been, I would say, mismanaging the Dungeons & Dragons brand. So what happened when 3rd edition came out? This was back at like turn of the century, I guess, right around going into like the aughts. And Wizards of the Coast bought out TSR. And they reviewed their books and they were like, you know what? D&D sells a lot of rule books, but where they were really losing money was on like all the adventures, because you would have like the DMs, first off, are the only people that buy the adventure, whereas everybody's going to buy the rule book. Only the Dungeon Master is going to buy the adventure. And Dungeon Masters would be like, oh, I like a setting. I like Ravenloft, or I like Forgotten Realms, or I like Greyhawk, or like, there's a whole bunch of different settings. Dark Sun, that one was recently announced to be problematic, and they weren't going to be redoing that one. It's a shame. I thought that was a pretty good setting. But, so first off, your DMs are the only people who are buying adventures, and then your DMs would only be one specific setting. So it becomes like a Venn diagram of like a subgroup of a subgroup would buy a given adventure for Ravenloft. And they're like, okay, they were losing money on the adventures, but they're making money on rule books. And so they came up with the idea, what if we just did an open license where anybody can write for Dungeons and Dragons, the rule set without paying us any kind of royalty. And then we'll just sell a lot of rule books. And, we've kind of essentially passed off the money losing portion of TSR onto other people. And that created this huge explosion. Dungeons and Dragons back in like the 90s was kind of a fading game. But then when they came out with that, it was this real revival. And, it's gone on to be the world's most popular role-playing game, as, so many people have referenced. And about 3 or 4 months ago, Wizards of the Coast was toying with the idea of, we're thinking of revoking that open gaming license. And, that had everybody all up in arms. So after that, I started going, gosh, do I even want to really keep working for 5th edition? Because they're about to transition to the next edition, which they've also decided to name 5th edition. Because there's a bunch of corporate drones over there now. Like D&D has become such a big brand that they want they want it to continue to grow. So it's they now have Cynthia Williams, the head of Wizards of the Coast, who's very hands-on with the brand. I don't know that she's a player, really appreciates it, but they were like, okay, the next edition of Dungeons and Dragons is going to be 1 D&D. And then that name didn't stick. And they're like, we're not changing. Well, we're changing a fair number of rules, but we're decided that we're going to keep calling it 5th edition, despite the fact we're going to reissue books under a different rule set. And I'm like, okay, that's just a bad idea. But anyway, I was like, okay. And one more thing is, it seems like they really have this passion towards embracing virtual tabletops. They put out a demo of D&D whatever, and everybody at the table had a laptop in front of them, and it seemed like they're really pushing Dungeons and Dragons being a computer-based game. Even in the video I was watching, is like they were sitting around a table, but like I said, everybody was on their computer or their phone. And so it's kind of getting away from the pen and paper aspect of it and making it more electronic. And I feel like that's going to leave an audience that, I can speak to. I can go talk to the tabletop pencil, pen and paper gamers who want to roll dice and not worry about, staring at this all the time. And so I'm re-releasing my D&D adventure for 5th edition. Or no, for Old School Essentials. So I'm taking what I wrote for 5th edition and releasing it as Old School Essentials. Meanwhile, I'm pretty proud of the module, and I've just been kind of giving it away so people could, take a look and play it and tell me what they thought. And if you want, I will send you a link and you can give this out to your listeners. Here's a free Dungeons and Dragons adventure. Let me find that real quick.
So let's actually talk about this a little bit, because I'm not a huge D&D player.
Okay.
But I played a little bit of it, but I haven't played like religiously. But I know that my friends play it. I know a lot of people play it. And what is this like? Because, if it's going all virtual,
there you go.
Going to get a point where it defeats the whole purpose of
yes
the thing of it. I mean, it's
yes.
kind of like why people, I like reading digital comics, and they're useful sometimes. And also sometimes, for digital comics, only like $2 or $3. And I don't know if I want to buy the physical one, it's like 30. It makes sense. But a lot of people who want to buy that comic want to buy a physical edition. And so what is this like? Because it seems like it's defeating the purpose of what D&D is supposed to be, which is not to be your phone.
Yes.
It's supposed to be, I don't have a dice here, but you're supposed to use your imagination. You're supposed
to be the game's supposed to be up here, not on a screen. And their demo of their new edition, it was very screen focused. And so I don't know what it's gonna be. And I'm seeing enough, huge dollar figures in other people kind of taking fantasy role playing in a different direction, or at least maybe the same direction of just, kind of continuing to serve a tabletop focus on the thing. That's where I want to be. Not to mention, like, I'm not a computer coder, like, I don't know that stuff. So anyway, but yeah, so that's what I got. And there's in 1981, I started the first convention I did coming out of quarantine. And for God, the horrific things they did to us. I remember when I had to let my hair grow long because they outlawed getting your hair cut for months. God, that's crazy stuff. But there was like this time where like all the conventions were closed and nothing was going on. And I was just looking for any convention I could do. And I found, oh wow, there's a role-playing convention here in North Texas. So I went to it, and it was focused on the old, so like, people who were my age who, played like the early editions of Dungeons and Dragons. And I sold more at that, which, by the way, the convention was limited to 500 people because they didn't want like a big crowd. And I sold more to those 500 people than I had sold previous. It was like my biggest convention sales. I'm like, I need to develop a product for these folks. So I did some research. And actually, I played with Doug Tenaple. I was running a game for him and his son, Ed. And we had some fun adventures. And I posted those over on my Pocket Jacks channel on YouTube. But there was an old adventure, 1981, Palace of the Silver Princess, which had been recalled and destroyed for its racy content.
It's all on a landfill, right?
Yeah. And like a surviving copy, it was published for 72 hours before being recalled and destroyed, making it the rarest D&D adventure ever. And one copy sold on eBay a couple of years ago for like $6,000, any surviving physical copies. And turns out like it contained what the publishers at the time felt was steamy S&M. And I'm like, okay, well, shit, that sounds like something I could do a bit with. And it was like this female-dominated S&M themed adventure in 1981. And I'm like, okay, well, why not do an update on that? So I came up with Palace of the Golden Princess, and we've Kickstarted a couple of comics as well as the module on Kickstarter, and it's done well. I've been happy with it. I certainly get a number of people who just love the cover of issue 1. Let me pull that up.
I know the cover, what it looks like.
Do you? I don't know that you do. Hold on, let me pull that. Because I was showing you like the gonna be cover of issue 3, and there's all right, hold on, that's 2, which 2 is gorgeous. Is the adventure? Brian, looking. All right.
There's some very interesting scenes in that book.
Have you read through the comic?
I did read through it.
Okay.
So I read through 1 a while ago, and then
what did you think? So hold on, I'm gonna share my screen. And I have issue 1 over here. Chrome tab, golden print. Boom. So here it is.
Yeah, let's add this to it.
Yeah. So that's issue 1, and that is just a gorgeous cover. I wish there was a way I could not get this thing down here at the bottom, but you can see that, right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I sold a tapestry of this image at my last show, and this is the main retail cover. Like the team that did this entire cover did the whole thing, and they really did a bang up job with it. So hold on, you can still see it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So all right. So you read this one? Yeah. This artwork right here got a lot of upvotes as well as a lot of comments on when I posted it to Reddit. But all right, what was your impression of the comic book? What did you think of it?
So I enjoyed it, and I like the fact that it was very female centric.
Yeah.
I felt the first issue, I'm very honest, was very much somewhat rushed. But then when you get to the second issue, you're like, oh, the first issue is not the story. It's the
Hmm.
second issue and going onward is the story where, because I thought it was going in one direction. And
Yeah.
then it turns out going on a whole different, I guess, adventure
Yeah.
where I was like, oh snap, like the adventure's over in issue one. Yeah, I was like, what? We just solved the problem. This is the quickest thing ever. And he's got like 4 more issues. Like, no,
Yeah.
and I'm being very honest. And then when you get to issue 2, you're like, oh, I understand that there is a twist.
Yeah.
That now we're taking a big left turn instead of going right. So that's what I thought of it. But
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
Well, good. I'm glad. And yeah, and issue 2 has a gorgeous cover too. Let me pull that up. Where is that? I need to organize my files better. There it is. So, and again, this is the main retail cover, and it's so pretty. Look at all these colors. Thor and the Summoner. And yeah, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts lately, and I became enchanted with there's a Fall of Civilizations podcast, and the ancient Assyrian Empire, ruins of their cities were discovered by this retreating Greek army after they suffered a defeat from the Persians, and they just had to run. So they were running through the desert, and they came across the ruins of Nineveh. And they were like, oh, who built this city? Nobody could even tell them. Like, they were asking people who lived by the ruins, like, who built this place? And no one even knew. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. It's like forgotten empire and like the gods they used to worship. And so in issue 3, we're going to be, going into like this dead desert city. And she's been contacted by Ereshkigal, who's one of the old Assyrian gods. And it's like demon stuff, and I think it's a gorgeous book. So yeah, issue 1 and 2 are out, and you can pick those up on eBay or over on Global Comics or whatever. And issue 3 is in the works. I think I showed you I showed you the cover of issue 3. Let me pull that up. What do you think of it?
I don't know. Did you show me the cover of issue 3? I don't remember the cover of issue 3.
Yeah, you said, yeah. Hold on.
Maybe I didn't see issue 3 now.
Okay.
There's a good chance that I might not have seen it actually.
This
image,
yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah.
I didn't know that was issue 3. In which I told you to send me the non-nude version.
Yes.
I'd like to keep my YouTube channel. And
exactly.
Thank God you didn't show the nude version of this. There is a nude version, everybody, but I would like to keep my YouTube channel the way it is, which is in good standing. Believe me, I've worked hard to keep it in good standing. But
yeah, there's also another cover by Miss Sashi. Neither of these are Zenescope names, but I'm really happy with the work they do. So that's Whiskey Paint and Miss Sashi. Here's 2 covers, but I also will be getting a cover from Marissa Pope. So
great Marissa Pope.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. I just got a showcase from her that's coming in the mail. It's a beautiful piece. It's a beautiful piece from Zenescope. It's beautiful.
And
she's special.
I did something that I hadn't done before, but that's I do writing and creator mentoring over on my YouTube channel. And I've got, like a number of creators who have, learned from me, and I can't take all the credit. So when I say, oh, this guy like that, understand that there are people who are working and they're applying their own ideas. And just because they came on my channel doesn't mean that that their success is due to me. But I like to think that I was a bit of a contributor. And the most recent one was Vito, who if you go to Indiegogo, if you go to Indiegogo, Vito he's got a Gasalti or something like that, but he actually made the front page. Yeah, hold on here, I'll show you right here. And he presented his script over a year ago on my channel. And, you know, I was the one telling them, okay, here's what a comic book script looks like. Here's, you know, how to structure stuff. But yeah, Super Killer. It's right here on the front page of Indiegogo. Check it out. And 2 days in, he's raised 22 grand. He's a big time YouTuber, so I figured he would get. He's got a lot of clout, so I figured it would do well for him. But yeah, Vito Gazzoldi. So there you go. So he's done well, and John Lamont, he's about to. Oh, so I have this bevy of creators I work with, and one of them is John Lamont, who we knew each other back when we were, you know, in screenwriting groups and whatnot. And I've helped him transition into comics. And one of the things I will do for certain campaigns is I'll go, hey, I'll buy a certain amount of this print run and I'll put my own cover on it. So I bought 2 different, basically 150 of my own version of his comic books for, like, his style, like Angel of Darkness 2 and Spirit of the Dragon 2. And I had Marissa Pope do the Spirit of the Dragon 2 cover. And I sold out all 150 copies at like a big premium. And I was like, wow, I should do this again. That was like some of the easiest money I ever made, because I didn't make the book. I just you know, purchased a certain number of print runs.
I'm a capitalist.
Yeah.
I'm a capitalist. Believe me, I'm a capitalist, and I subjugate people like crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, this is my eBay business. I mean, I'm making a killing off of Comics Elite right now with all Shikari stuff.
Wait, what is Comics Elite? What's that?
They're a comic shop who is exclusive to Shikari. So Shikari is this creator. I'll show a Shikari book right now.
All right, sure.
This is a Shikari book.
Okay.
That's beautiful, right?
Yeah.
So that book is a $20 book. That book trades for anywhere from 70 to 100 on eBay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that book sold out in 3 minutes or less, like last month. And then Shikari just did a bunch of Star Wars stuff. And I don't know if Shikari is a man or a woman. I have no idea.
Right.
But it doesn't matter. So Shikari has a deal with Comics Elite, and every single thing that Shikari just did, the preview edition, the regular edition, the Ghost edition of Ahsoka Tona, has sold out. And they're trading anywhere from $50 to $80 to $100 a pop. And I bought a bunch of them. And it's like the easiest money I've ever made. Like legitimately, it's all sold out. And like I'm selling books left and right now. So I have like 6 or 7 of each book.
Neat.
I'm just done. I've already made my money back.
Like, is this an artist you would encourage me to go work with, or?
Yeah, I don't think you can. They're exclusive. That's what's crazy is that, but it's just like their work sells out like crazy. But I think they may or may not take some work, and they're managed by Comics Elite, but their work is just so popular and they're just like beloved. It's insane, but it's brilliant how easiest money you ever made, right? Is by doing no work, right?
Exactly.
Oh, it's so wonderful, but I absolutely love it because I'm a greedy capitalist. I have no problem admitting that.
There you go. So fabulous. So yeah, that's what I got going on. We're about to. I will share a link with you for the upcoming Kickstarter for the old school essential version of the first adventure, and you know, like that's what I got going. I'm helping people enter the comics realm. Guy who's just presenting a script on my YouTube channel last night, Kyler. He started off focused on like NFT based comics. He did like a Kickstarter for Pumpkin Patch 1, and then went Chill Cubes or whatever, and then he recently did Alien Pterodactyl, spelled terror.
Greg Watson did a cover for that.
Yeah, and it did like 13 grand or like 12 or 13 grand, which is way more than I think he was expecting. So, you know, the people working with me are finding success that makes them happy. I know Vito was blown away. Vito did not expect to be, you know, $22,000 2 days in. So
let's actually talk about that, because you've done a bunch of stuff where, and we spoke about this the last time, where you could take, you know, people have, I forget the director, and you probably know, or the movie producer who basically took a failed movie from somebody, bought it out, gave them a piece of the action, took some B shot, and then sort of revived the movie so that it made money.
Yes. Yeah.
And
I mean, I know that Roger Corman,
I think
the
that's
King of
what
B movies. Yeah. He would, because, people would sink money into a project and just end up with something, a lot of footage that wasn't a movie, and they'd run out of money and they were just sunk. And Roger Corman would just like, okay, buy him out. And he would talk about like, you add in a voiceover narrator because they can fill in whatever gaps. And then the voiceover narrator just sets up, okay, here's the scene, here's the scene, here's the scene, or whatever. And, it's profit.
And so the reason why I bring that up is obviously when you have people coming on and presenting you scripts and you're giving them advice and you're giving them guidance in certain ways, that helps to steer them. And it's almost like a bumper. I mean, I think everybody's gone bowling and you put up the bumpers so that the ball doesn't go into the gutter.
Yes.
And so what is that like? Because it is very helpful when people do that. And people, obviously it's good content for you. And it's other things, and it's also, people tune in for that. And so what is that like? Because sometimes people just need a little bit of a push in the right direction. Say, hey, did you think about taking this character this way or that way? And now you're covering it. And so it's fascinating to me because, you're really sharing expert advice. And it still is the creator is doing 80% of the work or 90% of the work.
Right.
Maybe they just need a little bit of a consultant position, and then it sparks a new idea.
I mean, they just, like with Vito, with all these people, it's, they'll come and they'll go, well, what do you think of this? And I go, and a voice of experience helps, particularly when it's your first book, because there's a lot of pitfalls that you can make. So I like to be helpful. And, Kyler, he was like, my God, I would have paid a fair amount of money for all the advice that I got for free. And I'm like, well, cool, it's good. I'm not about, I mean, the problem is new creators aren't usually in a position to pay much for consulting, so I don't really worry about it. It's my contribution to art, is to allow people
to even go further into that too, because I'm sure you've seen this and I've seen it where there's predatory people in comics, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, I'm in litigation with a few of them.
so the person I'm talking about is more of a company, and I actually refused their sponsorship money because I did not like them, and I would have been better off economically, but I think it would have hurt my brand in the long run because I don't think they're good for business. And I mean, it's not that hard to know who I'm talking about, but I don't want to say their name. God forbid they come after me. But the idea is that I actually walked away from about $600 of sponsorship money, which would have covered me for 2 years on this show. I'm happy I did it because I found it to be predatory. And I think it's very interesting that you're not charging and that you're not trying to jack a new creator who probably doesn't know as much about the industry as you do or I do at this moment. Or somebody like Tom Hutchinson is another good example. I think Tom, you've known Tom for a while. Tom's been very supportive and very helpful to me. So I think it's fascinating that there are good people still in comics who don't want to destroy a new creator.
Yes.
And so what is that like for you to be one of, I guess, the hope? Because I see predatory people and it's,
I had, I've been thinking a lot about like the ancient Greeks lately and the dialogues they had, because I find it's relevant to modern day. And there's a term sophistry, which I'm not sure if you follow or aware of.
I don't know anything about that.
But the Socrates and them were like had a reaction against the sophists, who the sophists were, you can think of them as like the modern day postmoderns. They weren't really believers in like eternal truth. They were believers in essentially like political power and essentially like the power of narrative, and whatever the narrative was the reality. and those were the sophists. And that's, I think, definitely still very much alive and with us. And there were some ancient questions about the nature of virtue and the nature of leading a good life and all that. And one was, um if you could do the right thing, but people wouldn't know, you wouldn't get any glory for doing the right thing. And in fact, you would be, is it better to be recognized for being good, or is it better to do good? And, Socrates and, that whole school was like, doing good is its own reward. Virtue is its own reward. And even if you're the only person who knows you did right, that's all that matters. And, I get a lot of people, including the last time I was on your show, who say a lot of nasty things about me. And I found that kind of surprising because I am helpful. I help a lot of people, get started in comics and, kind of continue and foster them up. And, I get their campaigns up to where they're, making, at least getting close to break even or making a profit on the thing. And, when you're first coming into it, there's all these expenses and you're like, oh my God. And then when you finally get to, wow, I've kind of broken even, or maybe I made a little bit. Well, now it's, when's the next book coming out? Because, now they're paying for themselves, and that's what everybody wants to do. And, and I've helped a number of people get there. And I was thinking that I would get, a better reception, I suppose, than I
let's actually
tend
talk
to.
about that.
Yeah.
Because this is my thing, right? And this is my
Right.
biggest problem is that I'm an interviewer. What I mean, obviously, I'm trying to figure out how to self-fund this. Sponsorships help, but saying thank you is so hard in this industry, apparently. And that is my biggest pet peeve, where people, it's not like I don't get why nobody after an interview says, hey, really appreciate having you on. Just shoot me a DM on Twitter, Facebook, email me, whatnot. And you don't have to give me money. I mean, obviously, I appreciate when people give me money and things of that nature. But even just saying thank you, say, hey, really appreciate you getting me on your show. And to me, it seems like there's all this infighting in comics and people wanting to tear somebody down. And the only theory that I've come up with is that people are terrified that if I back your project, you're not going to back my project, or that there's $100 and there's 10 projects and the $100 is only going to go to 5 of them. And so they have to destroy somebody else. And that's what I think, to be quite honest, because that's what I think happened to me with certain people, and it may or may not be the same person.
Yeah.
So from the last time, who you was being difficult. So I'm curious what you think, because I think it's extremely toxic.
Yeah, the comics has a lot of toxic channels. Like the ostensibly right leaning, comic channels, particularly Comics Gate and that whole crowd, that's a very toxic group. But for that matter, that the social justice oriented crowd, like they were leaving me all these comments on Reddit, like, why are you sexualizing women? Like that's also a very toxic group.
I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, look, I am politically very, very, very in the center. I'm very purple. And I interview both sides. And I find that both sides are just equally as toxic. I really, I find that I get criticism from both sides. And to be honest, it's weird where I find good people still, but I find a lot of bad people. And I'm just like, and people who I thought were good are now bad. And it's like, I don't know if I changed. I don't know if they changed. And I'm not a comic writer. I'm just an interviewer. So I see everything a little bit differently, but like, I find the whole industry to be toxic. And then I go to wrestling and it's like the most supportive thing in the world. I go to cosplay and it's so supportive. I go to voice acting, it's so supportive. And I'm like, this is how it should be.
And I think, and part of it is because with I don't know too much about other communities, but with comics, particularly when we're doing the crowdfunding, there's the scoreboard. And if someone puts out big numbers and your numbers are not big, you inherently have these kind of negative feelings of disappointment or why. And whereas with cosplay, there isn't the scoreboard type of thing, I don't think. I mean, certainly, if you're a big enough cosplayer that the local convention is giving you a free booth, then people might start talking crap about you. I don't know, but like it's. I think there's a lot of pettiness, and there's certainly a desire to, well, quite frankly, destroy the small businesses of other people, and a lot of times it's just for no better reason than they just don't want to see the competition. And it brings out the worst in people. I don't know what it is. Like, comics is the easiest form by which to tell your artistic vision. I also produce movies. I'm looking to produce my second one, but unless you've got a lot of money, you're not going to be telling a sci-fi epic, or look, I wrote White Lily. It's a great story about the two deadliest female fighter pilots who ever lived. I would love to turn that into a movie, but I don't have the millions of dollars it would take for a period war drama. And so unless I can get someone else on board for that, it's going to exist as the trade paperback. And for me, that's the version of the story that I love and I love to share. And people, that's my number one selling story at conventions. It's not my number one selling story online because it doesn't have the bobs, all the sexy artwork that tends to move all the other books. But when I'm in person at conventions, White Lily is my number one selling book, and people love it. They read it, they come back, like, this story is so good. I'm gonna tell the people, like, thanks. And it's my hope that I also notice that, like, the more conventions I go to, the more I talk to people about them. They're starting to get more recognition. People go, oh yeah, I heard a podcast or whatever. So I feel like I'm kind of rolling a boulder downhill when it comes to the life and times of Lydia Litviak and Katya Budanova. I've sold thousands of copies of the book at this point. I've had tens of thousands of conversations with people, interviews and whatnot. And I feel like that story is building over time. And that's really the magic of comics, is that with a fairly modest budget, you can tell any story you want. You're not limited. They only, just like with pen and paper role-playing games, the only limit is your imagination, man. So it's a fantastic vehicle. And because of its power and its utility, I think it draws out some of the worst in people who don't want the competition. Or, let's face it, a lot of us, we're not naturally gifted storytellers. That is itself its own craft, which I work on over on my YouTube channel all the time. And a lot of people, for whatever reason, they think that they're good storytellers, just like you and I think we're probably pretty good drivers. Although if we sat with a professional driver and we ran a course, we would learn, no, we're not very good drivers. There's a lot to learn. And if people just have this thought, like, I'm a good storyteller, but when you start to go, okay, show me your script, you're like, no, that's not, you got to fix that, you got to fix that. And it's criticism that a lot of people aren't ready for. So I don't know,
you also think it's entitlement generation?
In part, sure, yeah.
Because I mean, look, I like to think that I'm a tough son of a bitch. I like to think that, where, I mean, I had my surgery and I just really didn't bitch about it. I mentioned it once on Facebook, and I come out swinging doing 6 interviews that week. Great. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. I booked this interview. I booked an interview 3 months, and then legitly I forgot that I was having my surgery that day. And I'm like, oh, wow. I guess I can't disappoint the guy that I booked it with. Okay. I do it anyway. He's like, yo, dude, do you want to reschedule? I'm like, no, I don't want to reschedule. He's like, we're doing it then. And I said to who I was doing, I said, if you cancel me, I'm going to be pissed. It was a very funny conversation. But the point is that, I think it's that too. And I think people say, I deserve to do 20,000 on a campaign. And I mean, you don't deserve anything. Yeah. I mean, and that's how I feel. But I find it a weird time. I find it a very weird time in comics right now. Mm-hmm. And it's very confusing to me, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
And I'm not a comic writer. I'm not a comic artist. I'm an interviewer, and I buy into a lot of books, and I'm confused massively. And I don't really know what to make of it.
in part, it's just, social media, and this is what you see in YouTube and social and, Twitter and all that, is you have to pick targets and subjects that you already know the group you are trying to reach is sympathetic towards. Like, if you develop a pretty big following, like let's say, you work hard and you find some topics that people like, and pretty soon you got, tens of thousands of viewers. Well, once you have that level of success, you then become very bound to, well, what do those people want to hear? And if you're someone who, is purple, as you like to say, then you become a person who is not exactly popular, because people want to hear what they want to hear. And if you have viewpoints that are going to piss off both sides, then you're not necessarily a good interview or a good person to present. So I see this tribalism and this kind of groupthink going back to, like the right-leaning version of comics and the left-leaning version of comics. And they're very cancelly, and they're very gatekeepy, and they're very like, you're not one of us, you gotta be whatever. And I think social media is really driving that, and it's bad. I don't know what to do about it, but that's the way things are.
I mean, we're stuck in it, I guess, is the only way how to put it. And look, I mean, it is, I guess people don't like me, and that's fine. That's
Right.
cool. But I'm going to call it the way I see it. And I think it makes me a good interviewer, because I'm right down the middle, and I call a ball, and I call a strike.
Yeah.
And, I just stopped listening to everybody who's not paying my bill. And then, and you know what is, at the end of the day, I'm a strong believer that the cream rises to the top. And I'm also a strong believer that there's a bunch of people out there who call it fair and call it down the middle, and they're killing it. And I got a feeling we're going to be going back to that a lot sooner than people realize. I have a feeling.
Well, from your lips to God's ears, as the saying goes. So, yeah.
I mean, I'll put it this way: I wouldn't bet against me. Is my point. Is all I'm going to say. I think a culture shift is about to happen. I really do. And
I would love it.
I think it's going to come, and I think it's going to come out of nowhere, and it's going to be like a massive pivot, and it's going to just realign everything. I think it's going to be great. And I think it's going to catch everybody off guard. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be like, wake up.
It would be such a huge culture shift if people started to discover skepticism, because they have been the desire of the social media and the narrative of the moment, which we've seen so many passionate ones. Like, how passionate were people about, oh my God, COVID, you got to do this and this and this, or you're killing people. And it's all these things that people got very passionate about and very involved in and bought into. But then later on, when other stuff comes out, like, do you want to go and admit you were wrong to your pals? A lot of, this is where maturity comes in, and then in the future you become a bit more skeptical the next time people are like, well, the science is hold up, wait a minute, let me look at this. But I think people often want to skip the painful step of going, maybe I got taken a little bit in by the narrative of the moment that my one particular crowd wanted to say or hear, and I got carried away, and maybe some things I said were wrong. That's something that I don't see. I mean, I'll certainly do it. I'll go, hey, I remember when this happened, and I said thus and so, and turns out that might not have been 100% the truth. And of course, if you're passionate about a politician, you have to understand that politicians are liars by nature. So nothing you say should really, or nothing they say that you're parroting is really going to hold up or stand the test of time, or even really stand up to any close scrutiny at the time. And that's why
there's only two things that ever stand up the test of time. It's death and taxes.
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. If a politician says you're going to be taxed and you're going to die, you can believe him on that, or her on that, for that matter. but that's as far as the belief should go. In the long term. And I'll be the first to say that I used to be very anti-crypto, and now I'm very pro-crypto.
Okay.
Right? And you know what it is? It took a while, and my friend over about 2.5 years convinced me, but it took 2.5 years of countless conversations.
It's gonna be. I will be very interested. I'm still anti-crypto, but it's gonna be very interesting to see how crypto does during an energy crisis, because we haven't seen it during that time. Crypto does not have a long track record, and I believe that energy prices are going to continue to head up. And then it becomes like, okay, if we have an extended period of time where oil is $120 to $150 a barrel and energy is just expensive and hard to come by, what is Bitcoin at? Because unlike other stores of value like gold or silver, if oil goes to the moon, well, it's going to be hard to get gold out of the ground, but that doesn't affect the value. Well, I guess it does affect the value of the gold I have, because the harder it is to get gold out of the ground, the more valuable the gold is. But when it comes to Bitcoin, that stuff is all electronic, and it all depends on operations that consume a fair amount of energy. And if the cost of energy goes up, what does that do to the value of Bitcoin itself?
It depends on how the Bitcoin is being mined.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. I know a lot about this.
Yeah.
So there are people who have bought dams to fund their Bitcoin mining operations,
right?
Because the dam provides enough hydroelectric power that it actually is a net surplus.
Mm-hmm.
So they basically mine Bitcoin using energy. They sold a bunch of Bitcoin, bought a dam, and have their hydroelectric plant power, and they sell the excess electricity off. So it depends on how it's being sourced. And then on top of that, it's also going to depend on, what happens with regulation with it.
Well,
so
sure.
in the next 7 years is really what's going to determine the value of store of value.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is like
central banks are buying in now. That's what's going on. The day Fidelity actually allows you to buy Bitcoin, that's the day it becomes a real store of value. Right now with Bitcoin, this is not financial advice. I mean, Michael Saylor spoke about this. A lot of people have spoken about this, is that the theory at the very least is that right now Bitcoin is massively undervalued because there's no regulation. The day Fidelity gets in there, Coinbase is going down to zero, where Coinbase will be a joke because Fidelity is one of the largest institutions, Vanguard. So when those players come in, BlackRock and Blackstone, that's when this becomes a store of value, because it becomes an actual viable thing where real financial institutions now have it in their banks and heavy in their banks. So,
well, again, I'm going to be curious to see how Bitcoin does during a time of high energy prices. We'll see.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Meanwhile, I'm keeping my gold and silver, so that's what I'm doing.
That's fine. That's fine. Don't worry. We can trade.
Yeah.
I'll graciously give you some Ethereum anytime you want it for some of your gold.
Right. And all these things that sound like made up stuff. Like Dogecoin. Like, what on earth is this stuff? People, this is Dogecoin. Like, what is Dogecoin?
I don't know anything about that either.
Exactly. This is all just made up stuff. Like, I know what gold is. That's an element. You have to go dig it out of the earth. It's hard to come by, but all this other stuff.
No. If you know what Bitcoin is, you know what Ethereum is, you know what Solana is, you'll be fine. You don't need to know what Dogecoin is. Okay. You need to know what Etchy coin is. I mean, hell, if we want to, we could create our own coin together.
Yeah. Great.
We'll call it fake gold.
I don't want to do that. So, like,
don't worry. We could pump and dump it anytime you want.
That's the other thing. It seems like a very manipulated market.
So Bitcoin is not a currency. It's actually property. Did you know that? Bitcoin is technically property. So if you sold your house and you sold your Bitcoin, they could actually offset each other if Bitcoin was at a loss and you had to pay capital gains in your house. It's insane. Ethereum is a currency. Bitcoin is property. So your house can actually own Bitcoin, which is ludicrous. It's the weirdest thing ever. Technically, a non-human can own Bitcoin. They cannot own Ethereum, which is crazy because Ethereum is a currency. But I digress. It's like the weirdest thing. Your comic can own Bitcoin.
Okay.
It's crazy. It's weird. And there's all this tax stuff about it that was eliminated last year where like if you were offsetting it, it's wild. It's wild. But I digress. I don't want to get into all of that because I like this topic way too much. I love this topic.
I see we found something you're very passionate about.
And people hate me because when I talk about this, they hate me when I talk about this and I think it's just because they're just anti-crypto and they just can't stand it. And I understand. So I'm sorry to everybody who has to listen to my crypto ranting, but I would prefer not to talk about it anymore because I'm hated enough. One day though, I will convince you to buy some Bitcoin. I promise.
Okay.
But I definitely want to talk about getting back to the industry because you do a bunch of cool stuff.
Oh, thanks.
That I appreciate, that I think is awesome, that I wish more creators would actually do. That's good for business. And you do a lot of variants, which a lot of people do. You do, I know, a lot of sort of package deals with a bunch of stuff that you do. But the thing that I think is actually really smart is the make 100s that you do, where I think there's only 100 items in the campaigns you do. It is 2 weeks before the main one, or even maybe 3 weeks, or even maybe 10 days before. It's a very short campaign.
Yeah.
And I think it's brilliant for two reasons. And is that A, you're giving a preview for people. And if everything sells out, well, you know, there's an exclusive variant on that campaign that now is gone. And it also gives you feedback on how it's going to go, the main campaign. And then, I mean, I did say two things, but I think there's a third thing too, where it's still basically you're dividing campaign 1 and campaign 2 into two campaigns, but it's the same printing.
Yeah.
Also means that if you do really well on that first one, that means that the second one doesn't have to do as well. Or you're already, you know, if you did 1,500 on that first campaign and you need to make $5,000 to break even, you now need to only do 3,500.
Well, and the other thing is, you know, if you take one campaign and break it into two, because your campaign does the best at the start and the finish. So now you have twice as many starts and twice as many finishes, and hooray! There was, Danny Gormy, who works as my editor, and he recently completed Cygnus Imperium 3, which I've helped him kind of get on board and out there, and he's very appreciative of my help, and I help him, he helps me. It all works. But one of the things he said was, Preston, watching what you do, I've learned that I don't need to worry about, oh my God, I have to make everything in this one campaign. I'm like, if there's a cover that's running late, or I want to do a cosplay cover with this artist, but she's not available, it's like, it's okay if, I'll get you in a couple of months, and then that can be its own campaign. I'm like, yeah, this is the idea that I'm reselling the same book I sold a while ago, but no one will buy it. No, they will. If it's an exciting cover, what I've learned is that often people just buy it for the cover and they don't read the thing. That's just,
I mean, I might steal that idea if I ever enter this space, because it's a smart idea. And I hate to say that I'm like a thief here, but again, if you do two cosplay covers, why not?
Yeah.
Have like a miniature cosplay thing with just two covers and keep it simple and cool. And now, you could up your campaigns and have a lot of fun with it.
Wow. I'm glad you appreciate that. So yeah,
I appreciate the business aspect of this, because I think it's something that's lacking massively.
And with what I'm about to do here with Old School Essentials, one, I distribute for those guys, so it's going to be boom, here's my module, also here's some Old School Essentials books if you need to buy them. Oh, and here's my comic books where you can add and bundle, and you're always new opportunities to sell your products to a new audience or in a different way. And
you just mentioned something, and I might be giving some trade secrets, because I try to do this as well, where I like to find like-minded products that go well together. Because so I am playing with a lot of Merc Mag in my eBay store. I play with Zenoscope. I'm playing with Mount Olympus. I'm obviously going to be playing with Big Dog Ink soon. And there's a few other companies I'm playing with. And all of those companies go well together. So what my bet is and I'm slowly testing the market, is that cool? If you like a Zenoscope book by Keith Garvey, there's an artist similar to Keith Garvey, or there might be a Big Dog Inc. Keith Garvey book, and you might want to buy both of those books from me because, bam, you are a Keith Garvey fanatic, and that's what you want. Or you really like some Merc Mag, and you're like, cool, I like this, but this looks similar to that. Cool, let me pick that up. And now all of a sudden, because my customer acquisition cost goes down. And so now if I can bring in a customer for book A and then you buy books A, B, C, D, and E, that's good for my store. And it's smart that you are, distributing for, old school sequentials. And then you have your thing in there that's similar to that. And well, now it's a similar product. And I think it's just massively lacking people thinking like that.
Well, that's something else that people learn if they, come hang out on my YouTube channel, my Discord, and they're like, no, how are you doing your promotions? It's. And the other thing that I teach people how to do is I teach people how to go to conventions, because that's a whole skill, like what am I offering, and I show them, here's my display, here's all the prints of all the covers I got behind me, here's books, here's my tablet where I've got sign up for the email address, so then you go on the Kickstarter list, and you've got it. These are all things that people don't know if they've never done it before. But if they listen to me, as they so often do, there was a guy a couple of years ago who's like, Preston, I did my very first convention and I sold $500 worth of stuff. And I was, it's the idea that you need a conversation starter, something to give away, so that when people walking by, like, hey, would you like a free card? It's got a Keith Garvey thing on it. And then boom, now that you got them with the free card, now you're going to talk about the comic book they're related to, and they're going to sign up, and they're this and they're that, like these skills that come from experience that are really invaluable to the beginner. And, I'm kind of getting people going out to conventions and kind of getting the synergy between the conventions and the Kickstarter and having all those things feed into each other. And I really hope that this is creating a renaissance, because, I look at, me and, okay, so some of the big people that I've worked with, like Vito and all that, but also, kind of some of the smalls, like, Kyler, who's, he's doing shows in New Mexico, and John Lamont, he's doing shows in Florida, and Danny Gormy, he's doing shows in Canada. As is Larry Holder, also doing shows in Canada, unlike a different Canadian Larry who got banned from conventions in Canada. So not him, but there's all these different comic creators doing all these different conventions and all presenting their own work, that when I came on the scene and I was doing, what are ostensibly supposed to be comic conventions, you would look and you would see Artist Alley full of a bunch of artists who were all doing their versions of, Black Cat and Iron Man and, like Baby Yoda, like whatever was hot in pop culture, everybody, oh, I did a ton of Baby Yodas, here's a bunch of Terminators, whatever. But with the people I'm working with now, they're going and they're presenting original stuff that they have written and are passionate about and want to talk to you about. And this is another thing that I feel like, is kind of rolling downhill. And as we keep going on for, a few more years, it's going to have a bigger and bigger impact, where more creators are getting involved, more local shows, that when people go to comic shows, it's becoming more of a thing of, oh, wow, look at the local comic creators who have these cool comics that I can't find anywhere else. So that's what I'm working towards. That's my vision.
No, I feel you. But again, I don't know where the industry is going. Yeah. I'm just trying to make money in it, and I'm trying to make money by selling books on eBay. That's okay. All.
Well, I do a fair amount of that myself.
And I like money. I've developed a very nasty habit that I like money. So it's a real problem. I'm working on it, guys.
Awesome.
It's gonna be a real problem. I don't know how I'm gonna get over it. But anyway, so many things to say, so little time. And obviously you do everything. So obviously you do eBay, you do your own variants.
I just got on Whatnot.
Oh, don't even. I refuse. I refuse. I am perfectly happy not on Whatnot. I don't understand Whatnot. Again,
you understand crypto, but Whatnot, this is a bridge too far.
It's not that I don't understand it. It's just that I don't have the time.
Got it.
Is what it really comes down to. Is that I would like to, on my Thursdays or my Saturdays, I would like to chill out and not be social.
Yeah,
I'm social enough in my daily life. I work 9 to 5. I'm social at my job. I'm social here. I'm social on other things. And after a while, I just don't feel like being in front of a camera anymore. And so that's what it comes down to. I kind of understand Whatnot, but I'm sure that if I sat down in an hour, I would get it. I just don't know enough about it. But again, it's not really my jam either because I'm already pulled in 15 directions. So there you go. But I digress. I do want to give you a chance to promote yourself because, again, mentioned you got an eBay store, you got a website, you got a bunch of Kickstarters, you got a bunch of other stuff, you got a YouTube channel, and some other
Pocket Jacks Comics is where I do the writing stuff. I also have a channel specifically for focusing on role playing, so that's called Lords of Iron, and yeah, I'm on Kickstarter. Preston Poulter, Pocket Jacks Comics. I will send you a link that you can share. In fact, here I'll do it. I gave you a link there in the chat to the free adventure everyone can download for 5e. Enjoy. And here I will give a link right now for the upcoming Old School Essentials campaign on Kickstarter.
I think it's up in the description already.
Oh, is it? Okay. Well, great. Then there you go. Awesome. There you go. Okay, fantastic.
I prepare.
I appreciate that. For a reason. There you go. Okay, fantastic. Well, yeah, everybody go sign up for the Kickstarter, as 21 people already did. Thank you so much.
Well, that's all you. So I should not be thankful for those 21 people, but hopefully we'll get another 21 people who will sign up.
That would be nice.
Thank me for that. But anyhow, but yeah, as you were saying, obviously you need to go support people. Obviously, you need to support indie, and what that means is that if people have Kickstarters that are running, you should back their Kickstarters. If people are on social media, you should follow them on social media. That's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, wherever else they're at. Obviously, you have a Whatnot. I'm sure that it's not that hard to find. Is it under the same name?
Yeah, it's the same name. So.
And then obviously you have an eBay store as well. Yeah. And then obviously you mentioned the YouTube stuff. And again, if you like anything that Preston does, obviously back in the campaigns is first and foremost if you want to see more of it. And then secondly, actually watching and engaging with him on social media, on YouTube, all that stuff makes a huge difference. Whether you're watching, liking it, putting it into your playlist, subscribing, it can make a huge difference. And also lets people know, hey, I like this stuff and I want to see more of it. And it's very important to go do that. And then as far as I'm concerned with everything that I'm doing, obviously down below on Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube on Pop Anime Comics. I have over 500 interviews at this point on YouTube, and I have a lot of content that comes out every single day. So there is something for you on my YouTube channel. I promise you. I cannot promise that you will get smarter, but I can promise you will be entertained for sure. On top of that, I am independent media, so you can buy me a coffee if you so choose, as well as I do have my ad rates up above or down below, depending if you would like to advertise on this show. But more importantly, I appreciate when people actually interact with me because that's what makes me feel really good and watch my content. So that's everything I got. And on that note, I'm going to give you the final word.
Sign up for the Kickstarter. If you like role-playing games, hope everybody enjoys the module. I'm really excited about the Palace comic book. I talked to a lot of people about it at conventions, and it's a hot new property that I'm glad to be shepherding into existence. So,
well, I don't think I could have said that any better myself, everybody, and that is